Hello and welcome to this Prolific webinar with Asana. I'm Joe Peach from Prolific, and we are joined today by Anna James. Anna, thank you very much for being here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm a quantitative researcher. I've been doing quantitative research for nearly a decade now, both on the supply side and in management consulting, and now at Asana. First as more of a traditional market researcher, partnering with marketing and product teams, and now with the Work Innovation Lab at Asana, which is an internal think tank that works with leading academics and industry experts to kind of uncover the top trends around the future of work.
Nice. Thanks, Anna. So let's get straight to it. Can we start with like a TLDR rundown of the research that Asana's been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the Work Innovation Lab, as I said, we're super excited to really dig into topics around the future of work. And the study that I wanted to talk about today is kind of building on a really fun experiment that we ran last year called the Collaboration Cleanse. And so the essence of that experiment was to ask people to track the collaboration tools that they're using on a daily basis, and then cut out half of them where possible, and basically just see what happens. See what happened from that reduced digital exhaustion. See what happened from just being able to focus on the tool, more specific tools that you're using. And so the study itself, the research study coming out of that, was just to dig deeper and understand what is making up people's collaboration stack or tech stacks today, and how can they be optimized to kind of alleviate some of that digital exhaustion as well.
Nice. Sounds really interesting. So I know you've been using Prolific to support your research for about a year now. Can you tell us a little something about the challenges you were facing before you started using Prolific?
Yeah. I mean, so Rebecca Hines, the head of Work Innovation Lab, introduced me to Prolific from more of that academic background as well. And I think one thing that will sound very familiar to any market researcher is that the trade-off between fast, good, and affordable research is really, really tricky. And when you add kind of internal client-side contracting and the legal approvals and all of the stuff that has to go through, those timelines can get really extended. And so for me personally, Prolific has been really helpful just in allowing me to move a lot faster and still maintain that kind of reasonable cost, and as well as high quality respondents. So kind of having the right vendor and platforms in place, you can collect the really high quality data and then have the processes in place in-house to kind of run that analysis really quickly, and basically access top line data almost instantly.
Yeah. So can you tell us a bit more about why you chose Prolific and how you've been using the platform?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Rebecca introduced me to Prolific, and immediately I started kind of playing around with it, seeing what the different options were. And for this study, we did use Prolific for, of course, data collection and kind of setting up all of the pre-screeners, going out and collecting data both in the US and the UK. And that is kind of the traditional process for us as well. So just being able to pre-select our key target audience, go in, we work with Qualtrics for kind of the programming side of things, and then being able to just collect all of our data directly into Qualtrics via Prolific is the typical workflow.
And are there any particular features of their Prolific platform that you have found most helpful for this research project?
Yeah, I think the pre-screeners are definitely the most helpful element. I think initially we were using what was available kind of already in the platform, and then we worked with the Prolific team to be able to essentially have our own standard pre-screener questions in the platform itself. And that just allows us to maintain that consistency across all the studies we do. So this study around collaboration technologies is one example, but what we like to do across the Work Innovation Lab research is also compare the insights that we're getting across different studies. And so it's critical to have that consistency in the sample composition and the way that we identify the respondents that are of interest. And that having those custom pre-screeners that also match to our product marketing teams, like target audience and different stakeholders' needs as well, and having them be on board and have approved the screening questions and being able to filter and cut all of our data any which way has been really, really helpful.
Now, on the Prolific platform, there's, I think, like 300 plus filters to help find the right participants. I understand that Asana makes good use of these filters to hone in on participants from specific industries. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you found that experience?
Yeah. Yes, there are definitely a ton available, and as I said, I think it's helpful to have our own custom ones for specifically the screening process, but then it's kind of fun to just go in and play around with what's available and say, okay, even if it isn't necessarily our main cut of interest, we can still explore different cuts that we wouldn't otherwise include because we don't want to make the survey too long. But I think one of the ones that we've used very consistently this year, as Asana's focus has shifted slightly as well, is just taking a deeper dive into industries. So when we think of collaboration technology specifically, of course, there is going to be a huge variation between, like, the tech industry is much more open to saying, like, okay, yeah, we'll try this software. Why not try this new tool? And then they end up with even more bloat. Whereas other industries like government or education, they will tend to have different kind of regulations or just tighter monitoring and often lower budgets around tools that they are able to provide to their employees. And so you just see some very different kind of attitudes and impacts there as well.
Let's talk about that a bit more, like the research itself. Like, are there key results or findings that you find most interesting that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I think on that note, I mean, one of the things we asked about was just, I think we often assume that people want to have full control over the tools that they're using at work. And so what was really fascinating was to see that almost 3/4 of respondents, so 74% of people, actually would prefer that the collaboration tools were standardized across the company. So you're not continually switching between different tools or not knowing which tool to use with which team and all of that back and forth. It just wastes people's time. So that was definitely an interesting insight. And then I think just understanding more about how much time is actually wasted switching between tools, and again, deciding which tool to use for any given task. That is something that we've since kind of replicated in different countries as well, outside of this was just US and UK focused, but across different regions, you see it be even more significant.
And with the research that you did, were there any answers or responses that surprised you or surpassed your expectations?
Yeah, I think I got ahead of myself there, but it was definitely the one around the timing of just the minutes in a day that people are spending switching between these tools. I think it was 84 minutes a day people spend just looking for information they need to do their job. And so if you take that and kind of expand that out over a week, over a month, or a year, it's just such an incredible amount of time that people spend either looking for information or reaching out to people to find the information that they need to do their job, or again, switching between the different collaboration tools because one team uses one tool for their needs and another team uses a different tool. So it just adds so much friction to everyone's kind of day-to-day work.
No. And so if you were going to make any recommendations,
Yeah.
this is based on what you learned from this research, what recommendations would you make?
Yeah, that's a good one. So we actually worked with Mark Hoffman, who's also on the Work Innovation Lab team. He leads our collaborative intelligence, so very analytics focused. And he went in and used the survey data to kind of identify the optimal number of tools within different categories. So when it comes to communication, like you don't need more than two in addition to email, unfortunately. But you shouldn't really be pushing beyond that because it does then have a negative impact on at least your perceived productivity. So you're going to feel a lot less productive if you have too many tools and if you can't decide which tool to use. I think that was one of the challenges that came from the experiment as well. It's people do want to get rid of different tools, but at a certain point they can't as well. If another team says, oh, this is the tool that we're using for this specific purpose, like I need your input on this specific task, then it's really difficult to say like, oh no, I don't use that tool, so I'm not going to provide feedback for that. So I think for leaders more broadly, there's definitely the consideration of how can I streamline the organization's tech stack as a whole to make sure that we are removing that friction.
Um, so I think most people who are watching this webinar could probably relate to this feeling of tech bloat, you know? So it's understandable why you would try and like dig into that as your research. I'd love to know a bit more about the pressing questions that Asana is working on and exploring next.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're definitely very focused on AI as everyone else is, but we ran a study last year, which was our State of AI at Work report, and that was kind of an initial dive into just AI sentiment among knowledge workers. Again, that was focused on the US and UK with around 4,500 respondents, and we recently replicated that again in the US and UK. And the output of that is going to, we're really excited to share that as well, which is just going to be how taking a look at the individual side. So again, the sentiment of how are people in different role levels and different functions feeling about the impact of AI? How are they using it? How are they not using it? What are the fears? What are the concerns? So that's more from the individual side. But then there's also the organizational perspective of what should leaders be doing? How should leaders be thinking about implementing policies, guidelines, principles, all of that stuff that comes with the new technology that is really completely different from our previous ways of working. So there's going to be a lot coming out soon that we'll be really excited to share as well.
Great. Thanks, Anna. We'll look forward to that. To wrap up, I'd obviously love to ask you a question again about your experience working with Prolific, particularly like what you think sets Prolific apart from other businesses you've used in the past. So if 3 words would come to mind, like what 3 words would you choose?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me not to just jump to convenient and easy to use. I think I've played around with a lot of market research tools specifically, and it's just a lot less clunky than a lot of other ones. But I think if I had to pick one word to like kind of as more of an overarching impact, I would say it's elevated my experience using a research tool. I think it's elevated the quality of the research that we're able to conduct in a shorter amount of time, and it just elevates that value to researchers more broadly.
Great. Good to hear. Thank you. Thanks for your time, and thanks for joining this webinar.
Awesome. Thank you.